Girls and Polish podcast. My name is Rachel, and I'm coming to you from just outside Sacramento, California. This is episode 27, and if you're thinking to yourself, it cannot be the end of the month, you're right. I typically record every 2 weeks or so. However, if you watch episode 26, I have 2 kids in school full time now, and I don't typically work on Fridays. So I have a little more flexibility than what I did before. So we're going to try doing an episode a week. We'll see how it goes. If it's not working, I'll let you guys know. But if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. So excited to spend a little bit of time with you talking about my knitting, planning my knits, books I'm reading, shows I'm watching, and just be able to spend some time with friends. So let's get started with finished objects. I don't have any. I had started some new socks last week. So I'm kind of in the process where things are getting done, but they're not done just yet. But we will talk about those works in progress. I always feel kind of bad when I don't have finished objects, because some weeks are very finished object heavy, like look at the 4 pairs of socks I finished or whatever. And then some weeks are very light. But I think it's good to have kind of that reality check as far as I don't sit and knit all day. I do other things besides that, and that's okay not to have a huge show of things that are done. So there's that. But works in progress, I've got 3 going on right now. So if you guys have been with me for the summer, you know that I have been participating in Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady, her summer sock knit along. So it's called Summer Sock Camp, and it ends at the end of the month. So I've got the last couple days, it's about a week left, kind of mad dash to finish my last 3 pairs of socks. So I kind of had to give myself a bit of a pep talk, because this has been a very heavy week as far as things that had to get done. I had different appointments I needed to be at, different meetings I had to be at. Our car was in the shop and ended up having some issues that are going to be very expensive to pay for. So the kind of spots of time where I would normally knit, I haven't had. So that was not something I was anticipating. So when I talk about planning my knits a little later in today's episode, I'll show you the post I did on Instagram of what I had planned for this week. And there's no way I could accomplish all that without staying up really late. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But things are getting worked on. So we'll start with these over here. These are my slack-tied socks. So the pattern's by Lindsey Fowler. And this is like a great vanilla sock with just a little bit of twist to it to make it kind of interesting and a little bit, not challenging, but just kind of mind-jogging. So the first sock is done. So I'll show you. So it's not blocked, but it is this gorgeous yarn. This is a tweed yarn by Filato, and it's called Shallows and Damson. I'm not sure which collection it's from. Gwen of Filato gave it to me for Christmas last year. We were in a sock swap. And so I've been saving this for a while, and I just love how beautiful that is coming out. I love her color choices, and these are just gorgeous. So when I was picking my pattern, I wanted something that was going to showcase more kind of the colors that she was using and the texture of the tweed yarn. So if you're not familiar with tweed yarn, it's all these little, like, can you see those little flecks of like fiber, the brown and black? It's just very rustic looking. So I wanted to showcase that more than like a really texture heavy pattern. So I went with this one. I did this pattern last January, love it. And it's going by quickly. Here's the second sock. So I've got the whole leg. This little stitch marker is where I started my heel. This is the back. So pretty, not basic, but just vanilla sock, 20 rounds for your cuff. I believe the pattern says to do like a 1x1 twisted rib. I did a 2x2 rib. Stuff like that is customizable. The leg length is pretty customizable as well. I went with 60 rounds. Your basic heel flap and gusset. And then you just kind of follow the pattern for the leg as far as where you're putting your ribbing. There's a little bit of ribbing in the back. I don't know how much that will show. And then there's a little bit of ribbing in the front. Hold on. Flip. I'm gonna try and stretch it out just a little bit so you can see that. And then once you kind of reached that last ribbing section, you just keep going until you start your toe. So I was trying to divide time between 3 pairs of socks and it just wasn't working out this week. So I'm just going to power through and work on this sock exclusively today. I have about 15 more rounds and then the toe. So I could probably get it done before lunch. But because I'm running out of time for summer sock camp, I did want to get things done instead of trying to do all the things. So this is a great pattern. This is a great yarn. Gwen is one of the sweetest people I've met through the knitting community. So definitely check out her website. I'm pretty sure she has some in-stock things right now. And it looks like on Instagram, she has some things that are coming out soon. So definitely check her out. Oh, I forgot to mention, links to all the makers, their websites, their Ravelry pages, the designers' Ravelry pages. That's all going to be in the description below. My website is on there. My email address, if you want to shoot me an email, all that's in the description. So definitely check those out. Next are my Now and Next socks. So these are by, I think it's Marceline Smith. Her Instagram handle and Ravelry handle is Hey Brownberry. And I've followed her for a number of years and I just really enjoy her work as far as her knitting patterns. I really enjoy just how she shares life. She's really big into exercising, which has kind of motivated me into starting to exercise again. So anyways, again, the loveliest people you find in the knitting community. So first sock is done. Ta-da! We are doing, and by we I mean me, I'm doing the colorway Gormanghast from Grenouille Co.'s advent calendar from last year. So another one I've been saving for a while for summer sock camp. So first sock is done. I'll stretch it out a little bit. It's got half of the front of the leg is stockinette and half of it is like a textured broken rib, which I really enjoyed. I was a little hesitant as far as doing a half and half sock, but I've really enjoyed how it's going. And then that just continues all the way down the front. The nice thing is you don't have that on the back. So the back is just stockinette, so you just go. So for the second sock, I've got the leg done and I've got the heel flap done. So I just need to turn my heel and then just go with the foot. Of course, I have to do my gusset decreases. But like I said, I was trying to divide time between all 3 projects and decided this is not sustainable. Nothing is going to get done in time. So I'm going to focus on those slack tie socks. Then my focus will be on these socks and then my third pair, which I will show you now. Okay, these are also by Hey Brownberry and it's called the intersection socks. We talked about this a little bit last week. I showed you the skein of yarn and I had envisioned fire socks because this is a lightly cabled sock, and the yarn, I'll show you the yarn first and then I'll show you the sock. So here's the yarn. This is by Lisa of Hickory Lane and this is the colorway button down flannel. I think this is from her fall favorites collection, or we submitted pictures and then she picked some, I don't remember, but this has always reminded me kind of fire-ish. So there's the deep reds, there's some yellow, there are little pops of blue, there's kind of some maroon colors. So I love these colors. These are like the colors of my heart. I know I say that often, but these are like colors that I'm drawn to. So when I saw the color, I was like, yes, I have to have that. And then I saw this pattern. I said, well, I have to have that, and I have to have them together. So here are my fire socks. And I am so glad I went with this pattern. So as you can see, it is kind of lightly cabled. So normally when you think of like a cable pattern, like a cable sweater, you think of those like fisherman white chunky sweaters with a real like heavy cables on it. It's not like that. The cables are spread out, and so they're still doing that like crisscross thing, but it's spread out so it's not super aggressive. And then here's the back, which is just stockinette, and I think you can see the colors variation a little better on that. But one thing I've noticed, when I knit cables, I don't knit them with a cable needle. So if you've never knit cables before, what makes a cable is you're rearranging the stitches. So you're crossing them in front like this or like this. So if it's a left leaning cable, hopefully I can do this correctly in the like mirroring of the camera. So if you're going like this, hold on, let's do it this way. Okay, so you have your stitches are like this, and you're going to take 2 stitches and you're going to put them in the front, and then the 2 stitches are going to go in the back like this, right? So now the front stitches are leaning to the, I guess in the camera it looks like it's leaning to the right. Okay, so that's called a right leaning cable. And then if you do it the other way, then you've got to move the first 2 stitches to the back and then the second 2 stitches to the front, and now you've got a left leaning cable. It's a little hard to remember, but then once you get it, it kind of sticks. For me, I have to like have my pattern out and I have to check every time, and then I kind of get it, and then I forget and I have to check over. But they're pretty fun. Some people put the stitches that they're going to move onto like a little needle about, yay big, and they'll either put it to the front, knit the 2 stitches that they need to knit, or 3 or 4 or whatever, and then knit the ones they put on their cable needle. I learned how to do cables via YouTube by rearranging them on my needles first. So I gently pull my needle out of the 2 stitches, slip the next 2 stitches onto my working needle, and then kind of put them all back where they're supposed to, and then I knit them. Some people can just drop these 2 stitches and just knit and then pick them up and keep knitting. I'm not that bold. But I have noticed that when I'm moving my stitches around, I tweak this wrist kind of funny, and I start having pain in my arm. Years ago when I was a librarian, this is so dumb, I was moving a collection of books from one side of the building to another side of the building. We were rearranging the way we were organizing things, and I would pick up books like this. So I would like grab 3 or 4 like adult size fiction books at a time like this, and then I'd pick them up, keep them holding, and then I'd stick them down this way onto the cart that I was sticking them on. And I'd do that for hours. And eventually I like ruined the like tendons in my wrist or the muscles or something. I ruined something in my wrist, and I had to do like workers' comp and PT, and it kind of fixed it. And then I became a mom, and something that moms get, or parents in general with newborns, it's called mommy wrist. And that's from when you pick up your baby. Hold on, I'm right by my kids' stuffed animals. I have a stuffed animal. All right, so when you pick up this is the baby, but when you pick up your baby, you like have your thumbs under, so all the weight is on your thumbs. Thank you, stuffed animal. And I like re-injured my wrists from picking up my kid. So then I had to like retrain myself to pick up my kid like this. So my thumb was underneath my kid's arm, and so I could pick him up this way instead of like with my thumbs out. Too much information? I don't know. But like that's kind of what I'm working with when I knit. With just the real knowledge of I can, if I'm not careful, if I don't take breaks, if I don't stretch or move between projects, I can injure myself, which sounds really silly of like, I hurt myself knitting, but it actually happens. So there is lots of different physical therapists who specialize in knitting because they're knitters and spinners and crafters. The knitting PT is one, and Ergo I knit. What's his first name? I think it's Carson. I'll put their stuff down below. But they have some great stuff. I took a class with Carson. I think that's his first name. He has a dog named Dashy. He's a little poodle, super cute. But they're, finding people who understand crafters and what we do to our bodies for our craft has been really nice as far as, okay, these are real injuries that I've done to my body, and here's how I prevent it, and then here's how I kind of heal from it. All that to say, I have to take breaks when I'm working on this sock because if I'm not careful, I tweak my wrist funny when I do my cables. And then I end up causing myself pain, and then it's like either work through the pain, which you really shouldn't do, or I forcibly have to stop. So I had to take a little break from these, but I love this pattern and I love this yarn. Definitely check those out. That was a really long story. Sorry about that. So those are the 3 that I'm hoping to finish by the end of summer sock camp. Obviously I'm going to finish my Swallows and Damson sock today. Next I'm going to focus on probably my now and next sock, and then I'll probably start like integrating a little bit of the intersection sock as well, so that hopefully I can just like mad dash and finish those last 2 before the 31st. We'll see. So speaking of that, let's go into like plans versus reality. If you follow me on Instagram, which you should, there's a link in my website. I posted a picture of my knitting planner, and I've got it right here in front of me. This is my little Hobonichi weeks. I know I've say it like every week. I've really enjoyed writing kind of my knits in this planner. My new one should be coming like September, October. I've got an A5 by Sterling Ink, which is very similar to the Hobonichi with a couple little tweaks. So I'm so excited to share that with you. However, I will share my plan for this week. So this is kind of what I have. Oh, let's move my ruler / bookmark. So this is kind of my setup. Can I get a little closer to that? So I usually have my, my whips. So I write down my list of whips, and I'll put up the picture later. And then I've got whatever I have for, what do you call them? Knit-alongs. So I've got 2 knit-alongs right now, and then my finished objects, which is down here by my finger. And then every week I kind of map out what I'm working on. So some weeks I just leave it blank and I just write down like I'm working on these 2 projects. And then at the end of the day, I'll write down how much I worked on it. Other weeks, like this week, I try and write down, okay, I want a goal of doing 20 rounds a day. Some weeks I can do that and more. This week I could not. Like I said, I had all sorts of meetings, helping out my kids' classroom, car issues. So the plans that I wrote are not gonna happen. And there's just kind of had to be a reality check of that's life and that's okay, and it's not worth staying up, till 1 or 2 in the morning just to meet these arbitrary plans that I made for myself. So a little bit of shift, but I think it's going to work out for the best. So I just got accepted for a test knit, and if you're not familiar with what a test knit is, it's when designers come out with a new pattern, and it's kind of like proofreading, where they say, here's the pattern, knit the pattern, see if everything makes sense, see if we missed anything. I've done some where like numbers were switched, and you kind of just let the designer know, hey, by the way, you wrote a 16, it really should be an 18. So that is really fun to do. So I've done a couple different test knits. Some were for designers who had a new pattern coming out. I've done like samples. So I've done samples for different yarn dyers. So like Gwen of Bella Filato, she had some minis, if you remember, at the beginning of the summer that she wanted to stripy socks. So I knit those for her. I've done samples for yarn shops. So they send me the yarn and they send me the pattern, and then I knit up the sweater or the shawl or whatever, and then I send it back, and then they pay me money. But for test knits, you typically don't get paid. They'll usually give you like a pattern, a free pattern out of their collection, or a couple free patterns. It just kind of depends on where they're at, but I'm just happy to get the pattern before everyone else and be able to write about it and share it and take pictures and just be able to knit it up. So I got accepted for this test knit. It's called the I don't remember what it's called. I was so excited. It's by Worsted Wolf, and I have been watching this kind of pattern for a while. It's based off of her favorite character in the A Court of Rose and Thorns series by Sarah J. Maas, Azrael. So, the Shadow Singer shawl. That's it. The Shadow Singer. Because her favorite character is Azrael, and he's called the Shadow Singer. So anyways, it's a cowl, so it's like almost like a turtleneck, but just like a big sock for your neck. So it's really nice and comfy, but it's got these wings to it, and then just the way you tie up the wings can look more kind of neck coverage if you live somewhere really cold. So she has a couple different samples of those. Check her out on Instagram. She explains this way better than I do, but I got accepted for the test knit this morning. So I already know which yarns I want to use. However, I can't pick. So I'll show you the two that I have picked out. It looks like her pattern uses 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn, between 1 and 2, depending on the size that you get. So I have this one by Nerdy Fiber, and I got this in Truckee, California, last summer. And so this is her juicy base. So it's 4-ply fingering weight, so there's no nylon. It's 100% superwash merino, 438 yards, 100 grams. So this is the colorway Ashland, and I really like this kind of dark. Let me pull the label off. I'm not gonna untwist it, but I can at least show you this. So it's got the greens, kind of some copper, some little hints of lighter greens. So I really like that one. And I have 2 skeins of that. Let me wrestle this back on. So we were on vacation. We rented a house up in Truckee last summer for the family. So there's a yarn shop. I think it's called Atelier. It'll be down below. But I had bought this while I was there. So I've got 2 skeins of that. Which I really love, kind of the darker hints of colors. The original sample was knit in like a darker color, so I kind of lean towards that just because it looks not similar, but kind of in that same color family, color hues as the original. But then I have the skeins from Hickory Lane, and this is her Fall Favorites collection. That's what it was. This one was from the Fall Favorites collection. So is this one. This one is called Falling Leaves. And this is also, this is by Hickory Lane Fiber Co. And 490 yards, 100 grams, 100% superwash merino. Pretty much same thing. But this one's a little brighter. So let me pull the label off this one. But it's got some blues, some pops of red, and then some greens as well. And I love those as well. The only difference between these two, besides the yarn dyers, I think this is also a 2-ply. Yeah, that's a 2-ply. And this is a 4-ply. So I know it's been a bit since we've talked about plies. A ply is, nerd moment, a ply is how many mini pieces of thread are spun together to make one thread. So you can have a single ply, so one single bit of fiber that's, so it has a little light spin to it, and that's just enough to keep the fibers together. You can have a 2-ply, so you have 2 pieces of fibers and they're twisted around like this. Okay. And then you can have a 3-ply, which is like this, but all 3 are twisted around together. And then you have a 4-ply, which is, my fingers don't do that. But there are pros and cons to both. When I was spinning, I preferred spinning a 3-ply yarn just because it made it a little bouncier, it made it a little more even and a little more round. There are pros and cons to both. This is a 4-ply, so it's very, I don't know how well you'll be able to see that. Let me move down a little bit. But it's a rounder kind of yarn. It's going to have a little higher twist in it. No, it's not going to have as high a twist. It'll have a good amount of twist because it is finger weight, but not as high. This is a 2-ply yarn. Let's see, is there a little bit? Let's see, I don't know how well you'll see that. Maybe not. Let's see if I can get these to stay down. All right. Nope, the fan's gonna make it not cooperate. That's not gonna help. Anyways, this has 2 threads twisted around each other, so this has a little higher twist to keep it all together. For this pattern, the ply is not going to make as big of a difference. If you're doing something like socks, you may want to have a little more decision. I like both. If you're doing color work, there's some theories as far as like why you would pick one over the other. But for this, no difference. I think there's a little bit of difference in the yardage. Yeah, so this is 438 yards. This is 490. But other than that, there's no, significant difference between the two. So I always have decision paralysis when it comes to stuff like this. For instance, what project should I start next? I don't know. I have 6 I want to start all right now. What color should I pick for this, test knit? I don't know. I have 2 really awesome choices that are both green. This one is green and copper. This one is green and blue and red. I don't know which one I want. So usually this is when I start rolling dice or asking you guys, which one do I pick? So if you have a favorite, let me know. Blue and green, copper and green. This test knit starts on the 1st. So I have like a week to figure my life out and decide which one I want to do. But because this does have a deadline, for this, I do map out my kind of plan. So, for instance, if I had a sweater, I don't have one with me right now, but if I had a sweater, I would kind of map out, okay, I'm going to do the cast on and all the increases on this day. And then I'm going to do the second half of the increases and split for the sleeves on this day. And then I'm going to do the body in this week. And then I'm going to do 1 week for the sleeve and 1 week for the other sleeve, and then I have 2 weeks for it to block and dry. So that's kind of how I typically plan things. Or I figure out how many rows, like if I'm doing a shawl. So if I'm doing a 600 row shawl, then I'll divide it between, 14 days or whatever. Let's say 12 days. So okay, I need to do 20 rows a day, I think. I don't do math well. But usually I have like a calculator and my pen and pencil and whatnot. But I map it out so I know that I'll be done in time for it to block. Because I don't like to send items back that are not completely finished. This shawl I do not have to send back. I get to keep this one. However, I am required to take pictures and share those via social media and on Ravelry to go with this pattern. So I need to have enough time to knit the whole thing, block it, make sure it dries in time. If we're still having considerable heat, it won't take that long. But if it starts getting cold quickly, it's going to take a bit longer. And then I need to have time to like get cute and take pictures of this shawl. So it's a little more than just knit the thing. It's a little more planning involved. But I'm excited that I can kind of take you guys along with this journey to how I plan my test knits and how I make sure that I'm doing right by the designer or the dyer who's kind of employed me, quote unquote, to knit this thing for them. There's only been one time where I had to back out of a test knit, and it was when I got COVID, and I was super upset that I had to back out because I got super sick, and there was just no way I was knitting while I was that sick. And so I thought I could kind of catch up, and I ended up just kind of biting the bullet. It's like, I'm not going to finish in time that the designer asked for. So I messaged her. I said, I am so sorry. It was actually for Lindsey Fowler. And I messaged her. I said, I'm so sorry. I've had COVID. I'm not going to finish my test. I really apologize. I can still do it. It's just going to be late if you want, but I'm not going to make it. And she was so sweet about it. And like, don't worry. This is why we have multiple testers from multiple sizes. Life happens. Take care of yourself. I will still give you the free pattern. I was like, no, please don't do that because I didn't do the work. I felt so bad. I didn't do the work, so don't pay me for something I didn't do. Give it to someone else who is struggling and needs this pattern. So that was my little story. But when you're doing test knits, it's always really great to communicate really well with the designer or the dyer that you're doing a sample for. You can always over communicate, you can never under communicate. And they tend to like really appreciate a lot of feedback as far as, hey, I'm halfway, I'm done, I'm just blocking. How do you want things done? Because you're providing a service. So that's the knitting talk. Books I'm reading, I started Anna Karenina. I was a lit major in college, and I got through my entire college career without reading Russian literature, mostly because it just seemed so daunting and just like intimidating. I always wanted to read Anna Karenina, but it was just kind of scary because it's so long. However, my husband and I joined like a classics book club with some friends from church. So the last book we did Emma of blanking on her name, Jane Austen. And then for the summer, like end of summer, we did The Little Prince. I really loved Emma. I did not like The Little Prince at all. So now we're doing Anna Karenina. And it seems like in that fall phase, we do a really long book. They've been doing this for a while, but they pick a really long book and they break it up into sections. So I've been listening to Anna Karenina on Audible, and this particular version is narrated by Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think she does a great job. And I've also enjoyed having someone pronounce the names correctly. It bothers me to no end when I cannot pronounce the name. which is why I love audiobooks, because I don't speak Russian and I don't live in an environment that has a lot of Russian influence, so I haven't had to learn how to pronounce names in Russian. So being able to hear someone else pronounce it correctly, and then kind of break down the naming conventions a little bit in hearing someone else pronounce the names has been really helpful as far as like keeping track of the characters. So I've really been enjoying it. I've seen the movie with Keira Knightley years ago, so I had kind of an idea of what happens, but it's a long book. It's 35 hours of narration, so I cannot imagine how long it took for Maggie Gyllenhaal to read the entire book, and you know, they record things multiple times and that must have taken forever. But great read. It's on Audible. If you have an Audible account, this particular version I believe is free because it's an Audible exclusive. I also started a book called Local Woman Missing, and I'm only in like 2 chapters. It's for Mom Book Club, so I haven't gotten too deep into it, but so far this woman is missing, I think. Like I said, I've only read like a chapter and a half, but so far so good. I like it. And then what I'm watching, I finished the first season of Rising Empire, the Ottomans. So it's when Sultan Mehmed II takes over Constantinople and renames it Istanbul. I've seen it before, so it's a mixture between actors and then historians telling this story. So I really appreciate both having the historical accuracy of all these different types of academics, some from the States, some are from Europe, some are from kind of that Istanbul area, Turkey, and then you know, you have these really great actors who are showing all the challenges that they had in this siege of taking over the city. And then they put out a second season, and that is Mehmed versus Vlad. So I did not know. So rewind. I did know that it was Constantinople. It was owned by or ruled by the Romans and Emperor Constantine. And then there was like this whole Orthodox split, and that's kind of where you get the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church kind of broke away in that area. But then you also had the Ottomans, and they were very heavily influenced in that area. They were all over the place. They were in Spain, they were all through Africa, they were into Europe, and Mehmed II takes back Constantinople and calls it Istanbul. What I didn't know was that Mehmed II was a contemporary of Vlad Dracula, who was a real person. You know, Vlad the Impaler, he did some really horrible things. And we have a lot of like historical accounts in detail of what he did. So the second season's a little heavier in that, like, this guy was just crazy. But is like, those are the parts of my history education that I feel like I missed, like the parts that I would have been really interested in, as far as like, who were these people and how did they affect each other and how all these different worlds collided together. So yeah, really enjoying that, but I needed a little break because it was just very heavy, and like right before bed watching something like that usually doesn't bother me, but sometimes can be a bit much. So I started rewatching Wednesday Addams because that's not heavy at all. I've watched it before, it's really fun, but I just needed something a little more lighthearted for now. So that also means I'm kind of in a show slump. So if you have any great show suggestions, drop them in the comments below. I'm easily entertained, so I'll try just about anything. So I'd love to hear what y'all are watching, what y'all enjoy watching, what you enjoy rewatching. I am notorious for rewatching things. They're just some things that are better when you see them the second time. And then of course we started Ahsoka on Disney Plus. So the first 2 episodes came out this week. My kids were talking about it nonstop for like the last 2 weeks. So Really enjoying watching those and watching those with the kids too. But that is our episode. So if you haven't yet, make sure you like and subscribe, turn on that little bell so you know when the next episode comes out. I'm hoping for next week. We'll see where we're at. But it's been great to spend some time with y'all. Have a great day. Find ways to be kind, and I will see you all next time.